I never imagined that the perfect facade of our life could shatter so completely. My name is Daniel Carter, and until recently, I believed that the life I shared with my wife, Elizabeth, was the epitome of marital bliss. We had built our world on mutual trust, shared dreams, and countless quiet moments that made our bond feel unbreakable. Every morning, as I sipped my coffee and watched the sun rise over our little suburban home, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Little did I know that beneath the surface of our daily routine, a storm was gathering, a storm that would challenge everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. Elizabeth had always been a captivating presence. Her laughter filled our home with warmth, and her compassionate nature drew people to her like moss to a flame. Friends often marveled at our relationship, admiring the ease with which we navigated life's ups and downs. In public, we were the quintessential couple, supportive, loving, and undeniably in sync. I, too, took pride in our image, convinced that we were living the dream many only fantasize about. But life, as it often does, had its own plans. It began with small, almost imperceptible changes. A delayed reply to a text message here, an unexpected phone call there. I initially brushed these off as the natural consequences of a busy life. Elizabeth was, after all, juggling work, social obligations, and the demands of modern living. However, as the weeks turned into months, the anomalies became harder to ignore. A mysterious smile on her face when she was on the phone, an elusive look in her eyes when she thought I wasn't watching. These subtle cues ignited a growing sense of unease within me. One particular evening, I returned home earlier than usual. The house was quiet, unusually so, and as I stepped into the living room, I noticed a faint, unfamiliar scent lingering in the air, a mix of expensive perfume and something else I couldn't quite place. Elizabeth was in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared dinner. When she saw me, her eyes flickered with a momentary uncertainty before the warm smile reappeared. I decided not to press the issue, attributing my doubts to mere imagination. After all, I had always trusted her implicitly. As days passed, the quiet discord in our home began to echo louder in my mind. I found myself retracing our shared moments, wondering if I had missed any hints of something amiss. Every loving glance and every soft-spoken word was now shrouded in doubt. I began to question my own perceptions, grappling with the possibility that I might be overthinking a notion that only deepened my internal conflict. I wanted to believe in the sanctity of our union, yet an unsettling undercurrent insisted that something was terribly wrong. Work became my escape. I threw myself into my projects at the advertising agency, seeking solace in the predictable chaos of deadlines and creative brainstorming sessions. My colleagues noticed a change in me. The usual easy smile was replaced with a furrowed brow and a distant gaze. But I kept my personal turmoil locked away, afraid to disrupt the equilibrium of my public persona. Every day, I returned home with the hope that the evening would restore some semblance of normalcy, yet each night brought with it a fresh wave of apprehension. One crisp autumn afternoon, as I was leaving the office, I found an envelope slipped under my car's windshield wiper. There was no return address, just a single sheet of paper containing a few typed lines. Sometimes the truth lies in the silence between words. I felt a chill run down my spine. Who could have sent it? And more importantly, what did it mean? I wrestled with the possibility that this was connected to the subtle changes I had observed. The ambiguity of the message only fueled my growing suspicions, forcing me to confront the disquieting idea that I might be standing on the precipice of a personal catastrophe. That evening, I decided to confront my inner turmoil. I sat at our dining table, a single lamp casting a soft glow over the room, and began writing in my journal, a habit I had long neglected. I recounted every detail of the past few months, every fleeting moment that now seemed significant. As I wrote, my thoughts churned like a turbulent sea, each line of ink a testament to my growing desperation to make sense of the inexplicable. I knew that somewhere beneath the veneer of our seemingly perfect life, a secret was festering, a secret that threatened to upend everything I held dear. The next morning, I woke before dawn and went for a walk around our neighborhood. The chill in the air mirrored the cold unease in my heart. With each step, I attempted to piece together the fragments of my suspicions, searching for a clue that might reveal the truth. The serene streets, lined with golden leaves and bathed in the soft light of early morning, seemed indifferent to my inner turmoil. Yet, in that silence, I could almost hear the echoes of my own doubts. I realized that the journey to uncover the truth would be both painful and inevitable, a path I was forced to traverse regardless of the consequences. Returning home, I resolved to be more attentive. I scrutinized every interaction, every glance shared between Elizabeth and her phone. I noticed how her smile would falter ever so slightly when a particular name flashed on the screen, how her attention would shift the moment our eyes met. The pieces of a disturbing puzzle were slowly coming together. I began to understand that the serene facade of our life was nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion, one that had masked a betrayal I could no longer ignore. In that moment of grim clarity, I knew that my life was about to change irrevocably. The comfortable certainty of our shared past was dissolving into a sea of uncertainty and pain. I was left with a choice: confront the truth head-on, or continue to live in a state of willful ignorance, allowing the secret to consume me from within. With a heavy heart and a resolve I scarcely recognized, I chose the former. The days ahead promised no easy answers, but they held the potential for liberation, even if that liberation came through the painful process of confronting betrayal. As night fell, I sat by the window, watching the stars emerge in a clear sky, each one a silent witness to the unraveling of my once secure world. I knew that the coming days would test the very core of my identity and the strength of my convictions. But in that quiet moment, I vowed to seek the truth, no matter how devastating it might be. The illusion of perfection was crumbling, and I had to be ready to face whatever lay beneath. The days following that fateful autumn afternoon were a blur of heightened emotions and restless nights. Every minute felt as though I were trapped in a waking nightmare, a relentless pursuit of elusive truths that refused to be fully grasped. I began to document every small detail: the slight hesitation in Elizabeth's responses, the furtive glances at her phone, and the inexplicable absences that grew longer with each passing week. What had once been a sanctuary of trust was now a labyrinth of shadows, each corridor concealing another secret. I attempted to maintain normalcy at work, but my focus was shattered. Meetings became a jumble of fragmented thoughts, and my creative spark, once a source of pride, was now clouded by doubts. The envelope's cryptic message haunted me. Its words echoed in the recesses of my mind, urging me to question everything I had taken for granted. I couldn't help but wonder if I was being manipulated by forces beyond my control, or if my own insecurities were distorting the reality of our marriage. Late one evening, as I sat alone in our study, I decided to take a closer look at Elizabeth's belongings. Not to invade her privacy, but to search for any evidence that might confirm or quash my growing suspicions. I meticulously examined a drawer filled with personal letters and mementos, tokens of our life together. Amid the familiar photographs and handwritten notes, I discovered a small, unfamiliar receipt from a high-end boutique. The date was recent, and it didn't match any of the occasions we had celebrated together. My heart pounded as I tried to decipher its significance. Had she been buying gifts for someone else? The possibility gnawed at me like a relentless predator. Over the following days, I found myself caught in a cycle of paranoia and desperate hope. Each time Elizabeth left the room, I would steal a glance at her phone, searching for any hint of a hidden conversation. My actions were accompanied by a growing internal dialogue, a mixture of self-reproach for doubting her and an overwhelming need to unearth the truth. I knew that every secret I uncovered could forever alter the foundation of our love. Yet, the thought of living in ignorance was far more unbearable than facing the potential pain of betrayal. One chilly evening, as the wind howled outside and the rain battered against the windows, I discovered an email that confirmed my worst fears. I had been left unread one too many times, and a peculiar string of messages between Elizabeth and someone named Michael suddenly became impossible to ignore. The tone was intimate, playful, and disturbingly familiar. Every word felt like a dagger, each sentence a testament to a growing intimacy that had been hidden in plain sight. I sat frozen, the glow of the computer screen reflecting my shock and disbelief. How could I have been so blind to this gradual erosion of trust? In the days that followed, I observed Elizabeth more closely. Her behavior became increasingly erratic: nervous laughter, fleeting glances toward the door, and a palpable tension in her interactions with friends and colleagues. The home that had once been filled with the comfort of shared memories now resonated with a dissonance I could neither understand nor ignore. I began to question every detail of our past: the spontaneous weekend trips, the long, meaningful conversations, and the countless promises whispered in the quiet of the night. Had they all been lies? I confided in a trusted friend, Mark, who had known Elizabeth and me for years. Over a cup of coffee in a quiet cafe, I recounted the peculiar events and the mysterious evidence that now surrounded me. Mark listened intently, his expression a mix of concern and sorrow. "Daniel," he said softly, "sometimes the truth is hard to accept, but you deserve to know it. Don't let your fear paralyze you." His words, meant to comfort, only intensified my inner turmoil. I realized that the path ahead would demand courage, a willingness to face not only the betrayal itself, but also the shattered illusions of a life I once thought perfect. Every night, sleep eluded me as I wrestled with the possibility that my marriage was built on a foundation of deceit. I found myself retracing every conversation, every shared smile, searching for signs I had overlooked. In those solitary hours, the house transformed into a theater of my darkest doubts, where each creak of the floorboards and every rustle of the curtains whispered secrets I desperately wished were not true. Determined to unearth the full extent of Elizabeth's hidden life, I began a careful investigation of her recent activities. I examined receipts, emails, and even social media interactions, piecing together a mosaic of evidence that painted a picture I had long feared. The more I discovered, the deeper I sank into a vortex of despair. The woman I had loved, the partner with whom I had shared my hopes and dreams, now seemed to be a stranger living a double life. Every new piece of evidence was like another chiseled blow to the sculpture of our past, a work of art now marred by the cruel reality of betrayal. In a final act of desperate resolve, I confronted the silence that had grown so oppressive in our home. Sitting at the edge of our bed, I stared into the empty space beside me, feeling the weight of solitude like a physical presence. I wondered if the love that had once defined us could ever be salvaged, or if it was destined to crumble under the strain of secrecy and lies. The seeds of suspicion had taken root deep within me, and I knew that the journey to uncover the truth had only just begun. As I closed my journal that night, the finality of my actions settled over me. I was no longer the man who had blindly trusted in the perfection of our life. I was now a man driven by the urgent need to discover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The storm was gathering, and I could feel its winds stirring the dormant embers of my heart, igniting a fire that promised both destruction and, perhaps, eventual renewal. The confrontation I had dreaded for so long was inevitable. In the weeks following my deep dive into the evidence, the tension in our home reached a boiling point. I could no longer live in the shadow of uncertainty, and the mounting weight of every discovered secret demanded resolution. One evening, as dusk settled over our quiet street, I found myself standing in our living room, heart pounding, eyes fixed on Elizabeth as she returned from one of her unexplained outings. Her face was unreadable as she entered, and for a brief, agonizing moment, time seemed to slow down. I mustered every ounce of courage, determined that this night would be the turning point. "Elizabeth," I began, my voice trembling slightly, "we need to talk." The room fell silent, the air thick with anticipation and dread. She paused, setting her bag down gently, and turned to face me. There was a fleeting flash of guilt in her eyes, an emotion I had hoped never to see, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a cold, guarded expression. I laid out the evidence in a series of deliberate, painful steps. The emails, the receipts, the mysterious messages with Michael, they all formed a damning narrative of betrayal. With every word I spoke, the facade of our perfect life crumbled further. Elizabeth's eyes darted between the pieces of evidence in my face, her expression shifting from shock to sorrow and then to defiance. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. But the damage had already been done. The conversation spiraled into a torrent of emotions. I demanded answers, each question laced with the anguish of a man betrayed. "Who is Michael?" I asked, my voice cracking. "How long has this been going on?" My words echoed in the room, punctuated by the silence that followed her every hesitant response. With each revelation, the depth of her deception became painfully clear. The woman I thought I knew had been living a double life, a secret that was as complex as it was devastating. In that moment of raw vulnerability, I could see the internal battle raging within her. Her eyes shimmered with tears as she struggled to explain, her voice trembling as she recounted a series of events that, until now, had remained hidden. She spoke of loneliness, of feeling trapped in a life that no longer fulfilled her, and of a connection with Michael that had evolved gradually into something neither of us had anticipated. Yet, even as she tried to justify her actions, I could not ignore the betrayal, the breach of trust that had severed the very foundation of our marriage. Anger and sorrow warred within me. I felt as though the ground had been ripped from beneath my feet, leaving me stranded in a chasm of disbelief and heartache. The confrontation became a cathartic release, each word a painful acknowledgement of a truth I had been forced to confront. I recalled every moment that now seemed tainted by the knowledge of her infidelity. The stolen glances, the hushed phone calls, the inexplicable absences. Every memory was re-examined under the harsh light of betrayal, and I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. As the night deepened, so did the rift between us. The conversation, though painful, was a necessary reckoning, a moment when the illusions of our past were laid bare. I listened as Elizabeth tried to explain her feelings, her remorse mingled with a desperation to salvage what remained of our shattered bond. But the truth, once spoken, could not be undone. The intimacy that had once defined our marriage was now irretrievably fractured, replaced by a cold clarity that cut through the remnants of our shared history. In the midst of that heart-wrenching confrontation, I reached a turning point. I realized that the love I had clung to was intertwined with illusions that had blinded me to the reality of our lives. The betrayal was not just a single moment of weakness. It was a slow, deliberate erosion of trust over time. With the evidence laid bare, the weight of that betrayal pressed down on me, leaving me with the painful understanding that forgiveness, if it were ever to be granted, would come at an immense cost. The confrontation ended with no neat resolution, only the raw, unfiltered pain of truth. Elizabeth retreated into silence, leaving me alone with the knowledge that our marriage, once a source of solace and certainty, was now defined by betrayal and loss. As I sat in the dim light of our living room, I felt a profound emptiness, as if a part of me had been irreversibly lost. The reality of our situation was undeniable. The seeds of suspicion had blossomed into a garden of deceit, and there was no returning to the innocence we once knew. That night, as I lay in bed with the remnants of our conversation echoing in my mind, I vowed to face the consequences of this revelation head-on. I resolved that the coming days would not be marked by despair alone, but by a determination to rebuild, whether that meant salvaging the remnants of our union or forging a new path without the person I had once believed was my partner for life. The road ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, yet I clung to a fragile hope that through this pain, I might find a deeper understanding of who I truly was. In the days that followed the painful revelation, life became a quiet battleground of conflicting emotions and uncertain futures. I found myself suspended between the desire to hold on to the memories of a once beautiful love and the overwhelming need to forge ahead into an uncharted existence. Every morning, I awoke with a lingering ache, a physical reminder of the betrayal that had torn apart the tapestry of our shared life. The silence in our home was deafening, each room echoing with the ghosts of conversations and dreams that now felt irretrievably lost. I began to navigate the aftermath in small, deliberate steps. The process of healing, I realized, would be neither quick nor straightforward. I turned inward, seeking solace in long walks and quiet moments of introspection. Each step on the familiar pavement felt laden with memories. Yet it was on these solitary journeys that I discovered an inner resilience I never knew existed. The pain of betrayal was profound, but it was also a catalyst for change, a force that compelled me to examine my own identity and values. I questioned the nature of trust, of commitment, and the very foundations upon which I had built my life. In the weeks following the confrontation, Elizabeth and I attempted a tentative dialogue, a series of conversations that oscillated between regret, anger, and reluctant understanding. We both knew that nothing could restore the past. The wounds were too deep, and the trust too irreparably damaged. Yet, in these moments of raw honesty, I found a bittersweet clarity. I realized that while the betrayal had shattered the illusion of our perfect life, it had also stripped away the layers of complacency that had long hidden my own fears and vulnerabilities. In that painful exposure, I discovered a new truth about myself, a determination to reclaim my identity, even if it meant letting go of the love I once cherished. The process of moving forward was marked by both external changes and internal growth. I began to invest more time in my passions and personal interests, reconnecting with the parts of me that had been dormant in the shadow of our shared life. I rekindled old friendships and ventured into new social circles, each interaction a reminder that life, despite its heartbreak, still held promise. With each new experience, I felt the weight of my sorrow gradually lifting, replaced by a cautious optimism that the future might offer new beginnings. At the same time, the practical realities of our situation demanded attention. We had built a life together, a home filled with memories, mutual obligations, and shared responsibilities. The prospect of disentangling our lives was daunting, yet it was a necessary step toward healing. With the help of a compassionate mediator, Elizabeth and I began the difficult process of redefining our relationship. We discussed everything from the logistics of living arrangements to the emotional support each of us would need in the coming months. These conversations were painful, often laced with tears and long silences, but they were also a testament to our mutual respect for the time we had shared. Even as I grappled with feelings of betrayal, I could not entirely dismiss the years of companionship and care that had once united us. In the quiet solitude of my own thoughts, I often found myself revisiting the night of the confrontation. I replayed every word, every tear, searching for some meaning that might ease the relentless ache of loss. I began to understand that the pain was not solely a consequence of Elizabeth's betrayal. It was also a mirror reflecting my own vulnerabilities and unspoken fears. I had always prided myself on being strong and self-assured, yet the experience had exposed the fragile human heart beneath the veneer of confidence. Accepting this vulnerability became a crucial part of my healing, a step toward embracing a more authentic version of myself. As the months passed, I noticed subtle shifts in the rhythm of my life. The stark, oppressive silence of the early days gradually gave way to moments of unexpected levity, a shared joke with a friend, a quiet afternoon spent reading in the park, or a burst of inspiration during a solitary walk. These instances, though fleeting, were like gentle reminders that life, even after profound loss, could still be beautiful. I began to see that the end of one chapter did not necessarily mark the complete loss of hope. Rather, it opened the possibility for a new beginning, one forged from the lessons of the past and the courage to move forward. In the final moments of this journey, I came to accept that the betrayal, as devastating as it had been, was only a part of a larger tapestry, a tapestry that now included pain, resilience, and ultimately, growth. I resolved that I would not allow the actions of one person to define my future. The experience had transformed me, leaving scars that would serve as constant reminders of what had been lost, but also of what could be gained in the pursuit of self-discovery and renewal. Now, as I sit quietly at my desk and pen these final reflections, I am filled with a cautious hope for the future. The road ahead is uncertain, and the wounds of betrayal may never fully disappear, but I have learned that healing is not measured by the erasure of pain, but by the strength to rise each day in spite of it. I owe it to myself to embrace this new chapter with open arms, acknowledging the past, yet daring to dream of a future built on honesty, resilience, and a rediscovered sense of self. The journey of healing continues, and with every step I take, I honor the man I have become, a man forged in the crucible of betrayal, yet unyielding in his determination to find light in even the darkest of nights.